Hey guys, it's Core Ross and Rainbow Six News. Today we're breaking down the CGI cinematic that was released for Rainbow Six Siege, which kicks off the story of Year 8. And they are definitely ramping things up with blood, gore, and death for Team Rainbow. And before we get into the breakdown, I would recommend if you've not seen this cinematic, go and watch it. I'll have a link in the description below so you can go check it out. I don't put it in this video because there's quite a big chance it'll get hit for copyright. So this video will be limited to a breakdown of what we're actually seeing in the video, and we'll go through it frame by frame. But if you've already watched, let's break down this cinematic. And it begins with a little intro summarizing what's happened over the last year and how it all leads up to now. So first of all, there's an assassination of someone that Azami knows. It turns out that the shell used was Night Haven gear. That then leads us to Team Rainbow's squads, with the first squad, Wolfguard, going out and getting intel by rescuing a hostage who turns out to be the architect of Night Haven's base. That architect is then able to give all the information needed for the next squad, Ghost Eyes, to infiltrate the Night Haven base and retrieve data, which actually proves that Night Haven is not guilty. They're just totally incompetent. And this results in a bunch of very good gear going out to bad guys, basically terrorists. As a result, Red Hammer and Ghost Eyes team up on a mission to hit the location of where this hardware is being kept, which is where this cinematic begins. Interestingly, no mention of Viper Strike, which is the other squad which has the new operator in it, which will be revealed tomorrow. So I don't know if they're off doing another mission or potentially being Viper Strike. Maybe they're going to get revenge for what happens at the end of this cinematic. So Red Hammer, led by Thermite, and Ghost Eyes, led by Cav, hit this location where all the hardware is being kept, and of course there's a whole bunch of bad guys there that they're going to take down, and they use their abilities to bust in. All very freaking cool. However, this is a setup and a distraction because back in Harry's office, and Harry is the leader of Team Rainbow because he's called 6, which I believe it comes from the military designation. If you are radioing a team and you ask for 6, you're asking for the leader. Anywho, in Harry's office is a bad guy, a very clear bad guy because he's got a black mask on. Although I guess we could say the same about Vigil. But he's sitting there looking all really bad. He actually looks a lot like the bad guy from Ghost Recon Breakpoint, I think. But he is a former member of Rainbow Six. And his name is Deimos. Now that is spelled Deimos. And I do not believe there's anyone in the lore of the books or the games with that name. I could be wrong because of course there's a lot to go through. But I don't believe that's a previous character. I think this is a brand new guy that's been introduced. Obviously though, he was in Rainbow Six in the past, probably before our current operators. And one of the first things he does when he's introduced in the CGI is push over a phone, a very rugged looking phone, to Harry, and he says, "This is how Rainbow dies." And the phone shows a live camera feed coming from Thermite's onboard camera. So this guy is in the system. He knows not just what Rainbow's doing, but obviously knows their systems and is able to get in and actually view the onboard cameras of operators, which of course is a very bad security risk. Then we get to see some kick-ass action, which flicks back between what Team Rainbow is doing out in the field and Harry's office with the bad guy. And Harry says that he has not been leading Rainbow Six, he has been teaching the Rainbow Six operators how to lead. And this all comes to a head when Ash and Thermite find a bomb which is about to explode. They manage to run away from it, but they look like they're very close to the blast radius and would at least get severely injured. Flicking back to Harry's office, he is then killed with one shot to the heart. And then our final look at Harry is a very familiar one that we've seen for many years now, which is him sitting in front of his big board. But unfortunately, he's dead. And the board is not updated as it normally would be from year to year. Starting, I would think, a whole new chapter in Rainbow Six Siege's story. And hopefully it is going to find its footing because we have seen in the past, like when Harry was introduced, they said, oh, Harry's going to be everywhere. You're going to see him a lot. You're going to be hearing from him a lot. And then he disappeared because we switched creative directors a couple of times. The same with Night Haven. They were introduced and it was like, ooh, is this a bad guy organization? They're like super high tech and everything. No, they're just incompetent and end up getting all their really high-tech gear given to terrorists. So we've seen all these previous kind of story beats that were brought in by past creative directors and such, and they've been kind of discarded along the time. So we'll see if this is going to solidify into something cool and awesome, or if this bad guy is just going to get discarded in a couple of years' time too. But certainly the switch away from the stadium-based sports that Team Rainbow were doing for a couple of years, now on to proper tactical counterterrorism and gore, death, everything that I actually do connect with the Rainbow Six series and the books and the previous games. So I'm curious for sure to see where this goes. Now we'll break down just some of the details I noticed while watching this. So our new big bad pushes over a phone to Harry. This is also the same model of phone used on the bomb, probably giving a visual connection between the bad guy and the big boom boom. When Harry reaches out, we get this beautiful reflection of Harry in the bad guy's mask. And we can also see the wedding ring that's on Harry's finger because he is married and he does have a son. And then just before he is killed, we get a close-up yet again of him touching that ring, most likely thinking of his wife and son before he is killed, giving the overall scene much more emphasis that this guy is leaving behind family. Then we see the first person perspective of Thermite, who apparently came to this fight without his weapon loaded as he's absolutely filling it full of shells. Then I want to point out that we've got this biker gang here, who at first I thought were actually the biker gang from Clubhouse. However, they don't appear to be, and they're called Dead Order Motorcycle. And that logo that they have, kind of skull, is very similar to the Clubhouse one, but not quite the same. However, when we see Cav assassinating one of these guys, it does linger on the logo on the guy's chest, so maybe we'll see these dudes in future content. And then we see the Nighthaven weapons getting pulled out of the crates, and I don't believe this is a gun we have in game. So I'm going to guess that if we get a Nighthaven operator for Season 2, maybe they'll have this as a primary weapon. I think the sight as well is a little bit different from what we got too, so maybe we'll see something with a new operator with a new kind of sight or something like that. But it's also possible this has been purely made up for the cinematic. And then we just get lovely, lovely action. And this thermite breach here, I just feel this is a callback to the launch of the game because this was in all the trailers back then. And it looks kind of similar, like they tried to really recreate it because that does not blow up like that in the actual game. It is very much like the original trailers. And yeah, and we see just everyone kicking butt. There's also some really cool deliberate details. So for instance, Sophia, once she uses her primary gadget, she drops it on the floor, literally just ditches it and moves on as if she is moving with purpose. This is not training or something like that. She's used her gadget and she's on to the next objective, just showing that purpose and movement. Although Sledge looks like he's moving at the speed of an 80-year-old man whose body has been through a lot. Ash also then breaches through a window, takes out a couple of dudes, and everyone's kind of pushing up, doing their job. And Cav just appears out of nowhere. She's in Ghost Eyes. I don't know if they really needed to have her in this, but I do love seeing her, bounce around all over the place when she's taking down bad guys. So, got no problem with Cav showing up here. And then blood. Actual blood splurts coming out of this dude's neck. So, good to see the gore return to Siege as well. And then let's end this video by talking about the bad guy, the villain. We haven't had a bad guy in Siege for 6 years. So very cool to have an actual villain. And I kind of assumed that this guy is actually going to be a playable operator someday. Obviously, the lore will not have him be part of Rainbow Six, but I could see him showing up as a playable character on maybe the attacker team. It also could be the version of him from when he was in Team Rainbow, so I could see him being a playable character in the future. However, I do want to say that character design for this guy is a little bit Ubisoft because he looks so much like the bad guy from Ghost Recon Breakpoint. He has the mask, he has the cape. Now, it is possible this is deliberate because Ghost Recon Breakpoint and Rainbow Six Siege are in the same universe at the same time. They have had actual crossovers, so he could be a wolf from Ghost Recon. It's possible, and that would not be the craziest of ideas. And just to add a little bit of fuel to that idea is that the weapon used to kill Harry by this bad guy is exactly the same model as the gun used by the bad guy in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Now, obviously, that guy did die in Breakpoint. This is a different character, but it certainly might make a connection. And Breakpoint's bad guys were relatively well written because they were actual operatives for different special forces who decided to go rogue, which is exactly what this guy has also done, making a potential connection there. But I do think Ubisoft are very bad at differentiating stuff. So, for instance, in Extraction, they went with the color scheme of yellow and black, the same as Division. And it's like, you couldn't have gone for a slightly different color. And I'm assuming that was a management choice because the actual artwork for some of the Rainbow Six Extraction stuff has been sensational and has all kinds of different colors. So I'm assuming someone could have gone for a different color palette. And it's the same with this guy. He's just a little bit too much like the bad guy from Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And it does have that Ubisoft samey vibe that they're getting very well known for these days. And then that very last shot of Harry is quite poignant. Of course, I don't feel like we really see his character enough to totally get to know him and care for him. But this final shot, because it is such a normal thing to see at the start of years with that board updated and Harry sitting there, this does impact me who would normally break down this kind of thing. So it's cool to actually see this. I think as well the board is different. I do see a few things that have been updated and a few post-its that have appeared. But obviously the details here are not, not even close to being good enough to figure out if there's actually anything of use to break down in that board. But yeah, guys, I'd love to know what you think of this in the comments below, especially the new bad guy. What is your thoughts and where do you think it's going to go? Also, are we going to get any kind of playable story content this year? Or is this, is this kind of thing, cinematics and cartoons, still going to be the story? And does that mean that next year we get a whole new storyline popping up? Or maybe 2 years from now? Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below and I'll catch you next time.